Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today we're talking with Toni Reinhart. She is a certified dementia practitioner, and she has had Comfort Keepers for four different area franchises now for 18 years.
Almost 18 years.
So this is amazing.
It's a long journey.
It has been, and we're here to talk about dementia-friendly America, which was a brand new concept for me, but it turns out Herndon, Virginia is the pilot program for this.
Herndon, Virginia, well, it's the pilot program for the state of Virginia. When my father first got dementia and I started taking him out into the community, it was much different from working as a comfort keeper. Normally we're respite care. We're in the home providing care for dementia patients. And it's not the same. Well, all of a sudden when you're out in the community, you start to see the deficiencies in how we provide for, how we care, how we communicate with people with dementia. So last March, not this one, the one before, I started looking around. I thought, this has to change. There's got to be something that we can do. And I found this Dementia Friendly America organization. So I got on their website and I looked at their map, and here were all these communities, and here was Virginia, and it was blank.
Wow.
There was nothing. North Carolina has dementia-friendly hospitals. They have dementia-friendly. North Carolina, we had nothing.
That's so interesting.
So I called the Dementia Friendly America people, and they said, wow, there's two women in Richmond that are also looking at this. And they, exactly at the same time, we had all come together, looked at the map and said, something needs to be done in Virginia. So my business is headquartered in Herndon, and Herndon's a nice little community that's really committed to being inclusive.
Oh, definitely.
So I called Lisa Merkel, I called the mayor, and I said, I would like to make Herndon the pilot city for this. And of course she was supportive.
Of course she was.
Of course she was. So I talked to the people with Leading Age and the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services, and I said, let's make Herndon the pilot city for the dementia-friendly initiative in the state of Virginia, and I will lead it. So of course they said yes.
Yeah, anytime you can get somebody to say, I will be in charge, yeah, that's a winner.
So I built an action team. I'm still practicing that term because being a business person and doing a lot of volunteer work, I'm used to us being committees and subcommittees.
Right.
But for this, we are action teams. So I built my action team, and we've had a lot of success. As a matter of fact, tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm training the Herndon Police Department in more effective communications for people with dementia.
You know, that is interesting, and it also brings up this idea that there's intersectionality between autism and dementia, because both of them involve problems with cognitive processing.
Yes.
And in the movement to try to work with police officers particularly, and how to deal with people who have autism, I can see the overlap and the fact that probably no one's ever considered that police need training. Because how do you tell if somebody has dementia?
Well,
just by looking at them.
And people ask me this all the time when I talk about the communications techniques. And some of the communications techniques are make sure that you have eye contact with the person with whom you're speaking.
Okay, that makes sense.
Wait, listen to them, remain calm, don't argue with them. Does any of that sound like it's detrimental if they don't happen to have dementia?
No, it sounds like you should treat everybody. Everybody should be kind of treated the same way, regardless. And you brought that up when we were talking before the show even started. Anything that we do to make life easier for people with all variety of disabilities, whether it's autism and dementia or some other type of disability, it makes it easier for everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have just made our little section of the world better for everyone. We haven't taken something away. So all of these communications techniques that work well with someone with autism, for instance, don't touch someone unless you've seen them, you've made eye contact, they know you're going to touch them.
Right.
How is that bad for someone that doesn't have autism or dementia?
That's right. That should just be the
norm for everyone.
The standard operating procedure should be do that for everyone with whom you come in contact.
And I think we should all learn not to argue, because
right,
really,
don't be argumentative, right? Don't be argumentative. But what are some of the other things you found, like taking your dad out? What are some of his specific hurdles in trying to interact with the larger community?
Really, I think the biggest hurdle is people do not stop, wait, and listen.
Okay.
They're so busy with their own agenda. My biggest hurdle is the doctor's offices. And I'm going to call out the doctor's offices. It's a bad experience for most of us. But for someone with dementia, you walk in, the person's behind a glass, they may not look up, they may not acknowledge you. That lack of acknowledgement for someone that doesn't have dementia is bad enough.
Right.
But for someone that has dementia, now they're not connected at all to you and they don't understand what's going on. Lighting is a big deal, and this is what we share with restaurants, some doctors' offices. And as we all get older, our vision is
right, it's impaired.
not as good
Yeah.
as it. I was trying not to use that impaired
but
word,
it
but
does
it's
to
true.
some extent. There's some natural deterioration.
There
of
is
vision.
natural deterioration. So we're going to see some of these changes just because we are demanding them. We're going to see lighting changes and signage changes. We need to simplify. We need to simplify the noise.
Right. And again, I go back to my knowledge of autism and the fact that, sensory issues are what, now you see productions that are sensory friendly, whether it's movies or it's plays or anything where sensory processing is an issue. Mm-hmm. But, we tend to focus on issues related to children. So there's a lot of emphasis and resources and research on things that will help children with autism be more successful. But we're talking about dementia, a whole different aspect of the life experience. And I am coming to understand that not a lot of resources and research is being given to issues of aging.
Well, I think we're seeing more just because
the boomers are getting older. 10,000 boomers a day are turning 65. And so yes, I think we're building it for ourselves.
We are building it.
But the people who are already in their 80s and 90s, suddenly you've got the sandwich generation, which are people like you taking care of a parent, and now you've got families where you may have an autistic child and an aging parent, and you're squeezed in between, trying to navigate the needs of these very particular populations of people.
And it's certainly not easy. There's 24/7 dementia care is one of the hardest things that anyone's ever going to do, and that's why as a community we need to be more supportive. What happens is when the care partner takes their loved one with dementia out into the community and they have a bad experience, they're likely to isolate sooner. And once that happens, the sooner the person with dementia isolates, the faster the progression of the disease. So we've done a disservice to not only the person with dementia, but their care partner, because when they're isolated, the care partner is now isolated more. So having a welcoming community, for a restaurant, you can keep your customer longer.
Right.
For our community, we can keep people engaged longer. And
so if you had to give, let's pick a restaurant in Herndon, if you had to give them advice on how to make the experience more dementia friendly, what would some of those suggestions be?
Some of the suggestions are to seat them in a quieter place, be aware of, and there are restaurants that certainly are more conducive to this.
Right.
Like, I would not recommend Bar Louie.
Right.
Do not take someone with dementia. That's not their demographic.
Right.
There's noise and excitement because a younger population is not going to go into a dead, boring place.
Right.
So that's not an appropriate, and not to say anything against Bar Louie, it's a fun, exciting place.
For the right
lots
community
of people should go there,
okay.
Not someone with dementia. You need to seat them in a quiet place. You need to make sure that they're seated facing a wall.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because you want the outside influences away from them so they can focus on their meal and enjoy their meal.
Okay.
So normally you'd be respectful and you'd want people to have some sort of a view and see what's going on in the restaurant. But for a person with dementia, you don't.
Okay.
You want them to have a quieter. You want to seat them somewhere where it's easy for them to get to the bathroom.
Okay.
And if possible, if you're a restaurant that can accommodate this, you want to simplify the menu.
That's interesting.
Now, what we recommend for people that are dining with someone with dementia is call the restaurant ahead of time and find out what the items are so that you know what the person you're eating with would like, so that you can simplify it for them and lead them to a choice you know they're already going to like.
This is interesting because, you know, now they have these menus that you get, and the Great American Restaurant Company does this with a gluten-free or a separate menu that has all of the things, you know, no nuts if it's vegan, if it's gluten-free or whatever, but it's basically a simplified menu for certain restrictions that they know people are coming into the restaurant with. So why couldn't you just have a simplified menu? And why couldn't you just ask when people arrive if they'd like the full menu or the simplified menu?
And you can.
That is fantastic.
You can simplify something, you know, for someone with dementia, you want a bigger font. You want more simple explanation of the dishes. You want fewer choices.
Yeah, fewer choices, bigger type, simple explanations.
Pictures, if
right?
you can have pictures.
Pictures, great idea.
Pictures are, you know, we certainly would go in where we may be paying $100 a plate and we don't expect a menu with pictures.
Right.
But this is a great tool for both the autistic population and the dementia population.
And that is amazing. And like, you know, and I just picked out Great American Restaurant Companies because they are local.
They are local.
They've got many restaurants, and that is kind of the place where you might go. It's a mid-priced, family-friendly sort of dining experience at the restaurants that they have. But with a few changes.
Simple changes.
Simple changes.
Not break in the bank changes.
Yeah, they could actually make it better for, you know, I love this idea, and that is a great example. So doctors' offices, restaurants, where else might people with dementia?
Right now we're concentrating heavily on the faith-based community, because when someone with dementia loses that connection to the church that they've always gone to, that's a difficult, sad situation. So we want that connection to go on for as long as possible. And this is one place where people really don't understand. They'll be sitting beside someone they've been sitting beside for ages, and all of a sudden they're acting up, or they could be in the choir and they don't remember the words, and they're dropping their music, and they're becoming what we think of as disruptive.
Right.
And so because they don't understand why this person is all of a sudden disruptive, you see that isolation. So the churches that we've been working with are very, very grateful for the tips, and we do role playing to help them understand, here's how you handle this person who's now going through this, and help them feel included and stay in their choir and in their church and in their faith-based community longer.
You know, that is fantastic, and I would not have thought about faith-based communities as a welcoming group of people to help you both in awareness, you know, and to keep that. You're right, that connection is so important to so many people. And when we return from this break, we are going to talk further about dementia-friendly communities here in Northern Virginia.
I got a crick in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. I don't know what to get on. All that I could do was remember you. You know I usually say no, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. Already posted it.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. Today I am talking with Toni Reinhart. She is a certified dementia practitioner. She happens to operate 4 locations of Comfort Keepers, which provide in-home care. But today we're talking about dementia-friendly Herndon, which is part of Dementia-Friendly America. Okay. And so when we went to our break, we were talking about the importance of faith communities and how willing they have been to try to support the members in their congregations, and the fact that training needs to be done, awareness, being able to tell when somebody might have early stages of dementia, and then how to keep them engaged in the community. I'm assuming that faith communities around this area are probably looking for those resources.
They actually are. One of the things that we forget, especially people like me, because we're in the industry and we've been in the industry for so long and we see dementia every day, is that it is new to a lot of people. So you've been going to your church or your synagogue or your mosque with these people for years. They're your neighbors, they're people that you know, they're members of your congregation. And when these changes start happening, you may not immediately think, oh, it's dementia and I need to change my response to this person. You responded a certain way to them your whole life, you have patterns. So the awareness is very important, just getting out in the community and saying this may be happening. And once you've identified that that's what it is, then that natural inclination that you may have when anybody's being disruptive or there's this change, you may view them as being aggressive, it's natural for you to pull back,
right?
To look away. Mm-hmm. That's just human nature. So we really do need to get the message out that it could be dementia, and let's try these different ways of communicating so that we can keep these people engaged. Sometimes the disruption and the aggressiveness is because they now are failing to understand what's going on.
So let me ask you this. I know that like 70% of people with dementia are living in their homes or in a home and not in assisted living.
Not in assisted or memory care or
anything like that. What happens when somebody's living alone and you suspect that a neighbor might be showing signs of dementia?
Well, 1 in 7 people with dementia are actually living alone.
Yeah.
So if it is a neighbor and you suspect, then one of the first things that I would do is reach out to them, find out if they have family.
Right.
Do they have family that you can talk to that may not be aware? I can tell you that if your family is not close by and doesn't see you all the time, people with dementia really know how to rally.
Right.
They really do. And one of the most interesting things is that social language that we all have stays much longer than language that requires some sort of cognition or more complicated comprehension. So the, oh, hi, how are you? It's good to see you. You can keep that up for a very, very long time. But, oh, Catherine, or whatever your name is, you learn how to avoid names and nouns and things you no longer remember how to say.
You know, it's so funny you say that because my mother-in-law had dementia for 10 years. I mean, and she was otherwise physically very healthy. And she was at Green Spring, which was a marvelous place for her. So when my children were younger and they would go to visit her on Easter and Christmas and Thanksgiving, you know, my daughter Emily would say she was so happy to see us and she's so glad that we came, but she has no idea who we are. But she would cover it up by not saying their names.
Right.
I mean, like, she would show them pictures and albums, and she knew that she should know them. And the kids had a wonderful time because she was very pleasant and she was very sweet to them. But Emily's like, she had manners. I mean, she knew exactly how to behave in a social situation, but she goes, clearly she had no idea who we were.
Yeah. That social situation stays for a very long time, and that's why someone that sees you only occasionally may not pick up on the fact that you have this deficit, that you have dementia.
But as far as the aggressiveness, that is something I think that is more normal than people think too. Paranoia, I think,
yes,
and aggressive behavior, and that startles people, like, where did it come from? But that is not uncommon.
It is not uncommon. Sometimes it's frustration, sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's fear. So it is important to try and calm the situation down, speak as calmly as you can. Another interesting thing is that you retain rhythm and music almost until the very end. So
I've heard that about music.
You can redirect people with music.
Yeah.
You can sing to them.
You know, Sherry Lejeune, who works a lot with aging.
I know Sherry.
Sherry is, yes, and so you know the work that she does with technology and iPads, but she is a big believer that music is what bridges the gap. People remember
Absolutely.
songs.
Yes,
Even
they
sometimes
do.
when they lose their language, they can
Yes.
remember the words to songs.
Music and rhythm is one of the last things you will lose.
So dancing, we were talking earlier that if you want to like keep dementia at bay, we should all be doing a lot more dancing.
We should be doing a lot more dancing. There was another study, there's a very famous 25-year-old study out of Harvard that dancing reduces your risk of dementia by 76%.
Seems reason enough for me.
Huge, huge. And there was another study that just came out that said 90 minutes a week, that's almost nothing, of dancing reverses aging in the brain. You can literally build new pathways.
That's fantastic.
So,
I'm going to tell my husband immediately. We
even
must
if
go
you-
dancing at least once a week.
You do not have to be good at it. No one's expecting you to be Channing Tatum. You just have to move. And the thing about dancing, they suspect, is that it's the trifecta. It is social, cognitive, and physical all at the same time.
Yeah, so let's talk about physical wellness, because I know too, going to the gym, like RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has a personal trainer, she works out all the time. What is the connection from engaging in physical activity and in focusing on wellness physically as far as its connection, to the pathways in your brain?
Well, the connection to your pathways in your brain, it's blood. You need to keep your blood flowing. And I find this so interesting when someone will talk to me and say, wow, this heart healthy diet is also your brain healthy diet. Wow.
It's kind of like how police treat people. If it's good for one person, it's good for everybody.
Good for
So a
everybody.
good diet is probably
A good diet is a good diet. It's
Yeah.
good for your heart, it's good for your brain, it's good for your skin, you look better. Yes, you can just sit around and eat blueberries and walnuts and salmon.
Yeah, be kind of boring.
Be kind of boring. But it's probably, I don't know if your grandmother ever told you this, but my grandmother was very into, you need to eat a varied diet and you need to have your vegetables every day.
Yes. My mother was like, she was very big into a green vegetable, an orange vegetable. I mean, whole grain. She was like, there should be a variety of color. If you have a variety of color on your plate, then it's a healthier diet.
Absolutely. And it's not Fruit Loops.
No, it's not Fruit Loops. We were never allowed to have those, actually.
Spinach.
Carrots, broccoli, squashes. And in the fruits, blueberries, strawberries, and the nuts, walnuts, almonds, pecans.
And it's a shame we have to relearn this. We have to
because it's just
relearn
basically
what is food.
It's whole food. It's
whole
non-processed food, and because of convenience, stable shelf life, culture, we don't eat a healthy diet. And I mean, that's just the fact of the matter, really. Talk a little bit about social isolation and its effect. We've touched on it a little bit, but older people is in the main as a whole tend to have a greater decline in health, not just mental health, when they are isolated socially.
Absolutely. And they have proven that the sooner someone is isolated, the faster the progression of the dementia. So that's another reason why the Dementia Friendly Initiative is concentrating on keeping people involved in their community. It will keep you healthier longer. So we do need to keep people socially engaged, and that's why we're encouraging people to look around them and see who might need to be reached out to.
Right, because transportation, when you live in the suburbs and it's not walkable and there's no easy public transportation, it makes it harder when you should not be driving anymore. Unless you have somebody come and pick you up and take you places, it's almost de facto that you're going to spend a lot more time alone in your house.
Absolutely. But we have more and more services now for transportation for people, and I'll give a little shout out in Herndon because this is where our initiative is concentrating. We have the Herndon Village Network, and they're volunteers that provide rides to seniors, and it doesn't have to be an emergency or a ride to the doctor. Maybe you just need to go to Walmart and do some shopping, but the Herndon Village Network is a wonderful organization that's providing transportation for people.
So let's talk about that. You're piloting this in Herndon for the Commonwealth of Virginia. But what if Falls Church or Fairfax City or some other place decides, well, this sounds like something we want to do in our community? How would they go about that?
We built a web page. One of the first things I did, I realized it was an important tool for communication. So if they go to dfaherndon.org, there's a button, contact me, and I will be more than happy to help someone. I will not start any more initiatives, but I will be more than happy to talk. I will come out and talk to you and help you.
Mentor, coach, that sort of thing.
Coach over the phone.
But isn't that part of this too a matter of collaboration and pulling together resources? We talked about Insight Memory Care and the fact that you built it and they came.
And I'm so grateful. I have an amazing team of men and women that have come and joined me. And as I was going through this process, I realized I can't run a nonprofit. I run a business.
Right.
So I was looking, who shares my mission? And Insight Memory Care was on board with this very, very early in the process. As a matter of fact, Christy Clark, who's the Assistant Executive Director, trained our trainers.
Oh, wow. That's
so
fantastic.
They've been so supportive. So I talked to them and I said, can we just be a program of Insight? The other thing is people have been offering financial support.
Right.
Which, yay, thank you. I love that.
Right, but you don't want to be a nonprofit.
I don't want to be a nonprofit, and
Right.
I don't have huge monetary needs. But Insight Memory Care, they do have monetary needs.
Right.
So all of our excess funding will now fund scholarships for people that cannot afford the respite care.
Oh, fantastic.
So it's something that's very dear to my heart.
Yes, of course.
So now Insight Memory Care and Dementia Friendly Herndon are in a partnership. We're a program for Insight Memory Care. All of our excess funds will go to support that program.
Well, with 10,000 people a day turning 65, we are both boomers, and we understand that we are building it not just for the people who need these services now, we are building it for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so I want to say thank you very much for coming and bringing this message to us. As Toni pointed out, if you are interested in how to start a dementia-friendly community, wherever you may be living in Fairfax County or beyond, it's dfaherndon.org. And Toni is happy to help set up, speak to groups.
I absolutely would love to.
Help you with collaborations, talk to you about training, whether it's through faith communities or it's other organizations where interacting with older people is something that is quite common. So thank you once again, Toni. Thank you for being with us today, because this is what you need to know.